North Main redevelopment agreement from the agenda. There's been new development in that over the weekend, and we'll be discussing that in executive session. Okay. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to discuss or remove? I will point out that we have two volunteer board appointments. Mr. Mark Graham and Ms. Lynette Shattuck are being appointed to the Gulf Cemetery Board. They will be replacing two term limited members. Mr. Kirby, who we thank for his service, and Mr. Weiss, who we thank for his service.
I don't have item to remove, but I've got a question on our DOT transfer fund amount. Item M. Is that close to the 377,000? Is that close to what we were anticipating there?
It's close to what we were anticipating. It's not what we put in, but we knew where we'd be.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Hold on.
I got another question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Oh, just a comment, and I guess it's for Nathan on the application for the grant on the skate park. Great if it goes through. If it doesn't, are there design options to get a skate park that might not cost quite as much or whatever?
We're going to hit all the rounds of the grants that are available, so there'll be more grants that we can keep working
Okay,
for.
and
Yep.
the timing of that just for construction season of 2020 or 2020? What?
Yeah, we could start as early as 2020. We're trying to get some funds, and then we'll bring it to council when we have those
Okay.
available. Yep.
Nathan, I was going to ask also on that particular grant, it shows on there that we had budgeted 5,000. Was that just for budgeting purposes? Or
That was for
gonna
the-
cost us for applying for the grant?
That was for the conceptual design that we had a public input session and put together a design so we can get some prices.
Okay, so it will not cost us anything to apply for the grant?
No, those,
We're doing it internally.
that's correct. There's no cost to that. That was already completed at the beginning of the year. Yep.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address these items? Roll call, please.
Charts. Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that is not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council? Come on up. You get 3 minutes.
How about 30? I need 30. Anyway, good evening. I'm Tara Volosky from Mitchell. And I don't think this is on the agenda tonight on Foxy, Crafty Fox, correct?
We've removed it.
Okay, so I can talk about it since it's not on the agenda. Anyway, I was driving down Main Street the other day, and, you know, with the weather getting chilly, I was going to go in and buy some yarn because I wanted to knit a scarf and a hat, and I see that the Crafty Fox is closed. And so there's all kinds of rumors going around that now the city has taken it over. Is that correct? Or what's going on with it? Because
As of today, Tara,
I
we
like
can't
craft
comment.
work. What?
As of today, Tara, we can't comment.
Oh, you can't comment. Okay, so, but I still have 2 minutes, right, to comment? So, okay, so anyway, here's the deal. So the poor lady had to go out of business, and I don't understand why you guys wouldn't allow her to continue with her business till you decided what the agreement was going to be, or the contract, or whether the city's going to take it over, or the development corporation, because, you know, we're coming into the holidays, and you wouldn't believe how much business that brings in from the smaller towns and from Huron. And, you know, people that like to do craft work, and I kind of wanted to get back into knitting. And now I don't know where to buy any yarn. I guess I'll have to go to Sioux Falls. But anyway, I just think that was probably not a very nice
Walmart-
thing.
Walmart has it.
Oh, Walmart? Oh, okay. I try to keep my business on Main Street. But yeah, I do go to Walmart. But anyway, I just thought that, wow, she still, just let her run her business till you decide what is going to happen with the building. And also on that piece of property across the street, I heard you turned it over to the Development Corporation. I really think you need to put it up for sale to private enterprise, because first of all, now it's taken off the tax rolls, and then they're going to decide what they want to do with it. Open it up, bid it out, put it up for sale. Let private enterprise develop it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Okay, council, anything you want to add, say? Okay. Quarterly report and presentation from Mitchell Area Development Corporation. Mr. Vox.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Great to be back with you again for our quarterly report covering the third quarter. Sonia sends her regards as she is out on the road this week at a tourism trade show trying to bring more tourism to our wonderful community. So I'll cover a couple things with development, CVB, and chamber, and then I'll invite Jared Indall with Mitchell Main Street and beyond to cover their portion of our report. A couple things to highlight from CVB side. Our digital marketing campaigns promoting back to school shopping in August. The Facebook impressions were over 250,000 and the clicks were over 1,300. We distributed 40,000 copies of Mitchell Guide to Everything. Our Mitchell Facebook page views are up 22%. The video views are up 85% with over 1 million content views. We are really excited about these numbers and they continue to grow. Of course, many of you were at the Palace City Pre-Sturgis event, which was a phenomenal success with more than 5,000 people in attendance. We continue to do great things there and look for a bigger and better event next year. Tourism enterprise for the third quarter, we welcomed 146 bus groups, with September being the highest volume, and we had visitors from all 50 states and 28 different countries. So our CVB tourism numbers continue to climb and trend the right direction. We're really proud of all of the efforts in that area. On the Development Corporation side of things, we've had some new business development, things happening in Parkston, which is really good. Housing in Parkston and White Lake with affordable homes. We continue to hear that affordable and workforce housing continue to be our biggest issues, not only here in Mitchell, but across the region. We received a $5,000 grant to create the Career and Technical Education Summer Camps for 30 students, which Lori Essick is working diligently on. And you see our labor statistics. For July of 2019, we have 11,000 people employed, 257 unemployed, with 750 jobs for those 257 people. So continues to be more jobs than there are people. Our unemployment rate continues to drop. It's 2.3%. Depending on your point of view, that's either a really, really good number or it's a challenging number. Our industrial park received shovel-ready certification status by the state, which is good. More and more projects and prospects that we deal with, they're interested. They want to be, when they call, they want to be ready to go in the ground now. It used to be you were the first call that they made. Now you're the last. They're down. When they call you now, you're down to the final 2 or 3 sites. And this is a really important step in that regard. We continue working on a potential housing development opportunity, a new industrial/business park, and some entrepreneurial development partnerships that hopefully we can talk about more at our next quarterly report. Any questions for me before I turn it over to Jared? Thank you for your continued support. We've got a lot of great things going in partnership with all of you and with Stephanie, and we continue to build the momentum to make this an even better place to live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will briefly talk about some of Mitchell Main Street's wins during our the third quarter. As you can see here, we've increased our membership with 7 new members during the third quarter. Along with that, we've surpassed our new member revenue goal with 3 months remaining in the year. So we're still continually trying to grow on that and grow our membership. We've increased our Facebook following by around 400, which is really significant. A lot of that was part of our Ladies' Day Out, which I'll get into actually right now. So Ladies' Day Out was our biannual shopping promotion that we do. It is in April and October. So we had our last one October 3rd, and it was actually very, very successful for us. We had between 225 and 250 shoppers that came out for this. 125 completed and turned in their passport punch cards. So that was an incentive that we did to make sure that these shoppers were coming out and going into these participating businesses, shopping, looking around, spending some money. Once they filled out their punch card, we entered them into a drawing for, I think it was over $600 in prizes and gift cards. So it was a really, really good incentive. But another reason why I do that, I find the stats that, where are these people coming from shopping? And happy to report there's a group from the Platte-Geddes area, Faulkton, Chamberlain, Sioux Falls, Laverne, Minnesota, Huron, Hartford. So they're coming from surrounding communities, getting to know what Mitchell has to offer. So it's a really, really great promotion. I also surveyed our businesses after this event to kind of get an idea, because we always want to make this event better and see how we can grow it. Happy to report that all 25 that participated were happy and would or will do it again. We'll do this again in April. 18 of those businesses saw an increase or the same sales. I only say 18 because 7 of these were actually their first time participating, so they didn't have a baseline. It's honestly really a great promotion that really attracts people to our downtown, and I'm very, very happy with our turnout, and we'll really try and take that momentum into the holiday shopping season, and we'll do this again in April. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10, ask you to approve Agreement A 2019-47, 223 North Main Rental Agreement. That comes off too, doesn't it?
No, that one can stay.
Okay.
And I think, Mayor, you probably had more discussions with DWU than I did.
In essence, what this is Dakota Westing had called and requested that they be allowed to use the second floor for a haunted house. And I asked them to get with Mr. Johnson and set up a rental agreement so that they can get in there and use that second floor for a haunted house for purpose of raising money for a fundraiser for various campus activities, I guess. So Mr. Johnson put together the agreement, and it is before you.
My only question, as I read through it, was we're okay safety-wise and access to second floor and all that type of stuff? I mean, I've been in that building, but never on the second floor, so I don't know. I don't know how you get in and out, so.
There's a stairway. We actually walked through it. Actually, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Croce were going through it. I went
Okay.
down to find Mr. Croce for a couple questions, and I walked through it.
Okay.
It's actually fairly structurally sound, not fairly, it is structurally sound.
Okay.
I mean,
And there's a way to get in and out
It's a
without going through the
disrepair.
front door, or how?
Yes, it would be front door access. There's, the main
Side
entrance
door.
to the building, and then there's an entrance to the south that goes right down the hallway to the stairs.
So where they, okay.
yep, and they've kind of they've had it there before. There's still remnants of a previous
Okay.
spook
That
house,
was-
if you will, in there, so. And hopefully this one, we've got them cleaning it up as well, do we not?
Correct.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? Come on up.
He probably wants to get a ticket for that. You probably want to get a ticket.
Yes, I do. No. Okay, I was just wondering. Okay, so we don't know who owns the building yet. I'm just wondering, did you get permission from Mrs. Christensen to use her building?
Actually, Mrs. Christensen sent them to us.
That's not what I heard, but,
Well, that's what they told us.
okay, well, somebody's fibbing, because that's not what I heard. So, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Recommendation to appoint Doug Greenway as Corn Palace Director effective November 4th, 2019. Interviews were completed. We had numerous interviews, Mr. Dosher, Mr. McCardle, and myself, along with Human Resources, Billy Kelly and Stephanie Elwine did the interviews. They were very good. All the candidates were very qualified and had the ability to take on the position. Mr. Greenway was selected as the choice for the position. I would recommend his approval.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Entertain a motion for the city council to recess the Citizens Board of Adjustment. Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing on 11/4/2019. Mark Bigelow, partner MRS LLC applicant and EIG Palace Mall owner, have made an application for conditional use permit for construction of a self-service storage facility buildings with various compartment sizes, 50 to 400 square feet for household commercial storage located at 1800 North Main, which is the Palace Mall. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Allen.
Oh, Barrington.
Mr. Burrington, thank you. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/4/2019. Stephen and Leanne Gendersey have applied for a backyard variance of 3 feet versus 5 feet for construction of an addition to their existing detached garage located at 123 South Menser Street, legally described as lots 11 and 12, Block 2, Applegate Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is R2, single-family residential.
Motion set the date.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on Ronald Fessler, 1101 West 7th Avenue, Mitchell, South Dakota. Ronald Fessler has applied for side yard on a corner variance of 10 feet versus 20 feet is required for 22 versus 25 feet for construction of addition and detached garage, 1100 West 7th, legally described as east half block, lot 1, block 3, Bracey's Addition, City of Mitchell. Property is owned R2, single family.
Mayor and council, if I direct your attention to the Planning Commission minutes that you saw, that the Planning Commission did hold a hearing on this, and their recommendation is to leave the backyard variance at the 22. They're acceptable. They recommend that stay. However, they did suggest that the 10-foot variance be back 2 feet, and hence would make it a 12-foot variance. And they were, as you can see, they were concerned about parking if and when the sidewalk would ever get installed there. However, I did have some material that came from after the Planning Commission from Ethan Lumber, who is his contractor, and did have a comment, so that's on the material that's there. Basically, it's the same plan that you saw that was submitted, but it did have some elevations, and so I'll let them, pretty well comment there. And I see Mr. Fessler is here if you've got more specific questions of him. There was no neighborhood objections here, so that's the suggestion, so.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mrs.
At the
Sharp.
10?
Further discussion?
At the 10? Okay.
And the question about the parking, the 10-foot,
Yeah, okay.
is that what,
He said the 10-foot instead of the 12-foot variance as recommended.
You're following the,
Following
The original
the
one.
original.
the original.
And the 22 is fine too. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it?
Mr. Fessler, they're proposing it, go back to the original, what you proposed, the 10-foot.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council reconvene in regular session.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Charles. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Airport consultant discussion. Mr. Croce, you want to introduce your consultant?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, we've been working with Helms and Associates on the reconstruction project at the reconstruction runway project over at the airport. And so we've run into some situations and requirements that need to be addressed. So we thought bringing in Helms to discuss what we've encountered with FAA requirements and the design, so they can explain it to the council directly. So Brooke and Corey from Helms are here, and they can go through the presentation.
Hello. I just put a brief presentation together quick, so we'll go through that, and feel free to interrupt or ask any questions as we go through. Again, I'm Brooke Edgar with Helms and Associates. Corey Helms is also with me. So we started down the process quite a while ago of looking at the current Crosswind Runway 1836. It's time for it to get reconstructed. The current condition of the pavement, there's a numerical value, the Pavement Condition Index, PCI, is at a 63. It's on a scale of 0 to 100. And the typical number that the FAA doesn't like to see a runway for safety reasons is to get below 60. So we're at that point where we wanted to start looking at trying to design and build that, rebuild that runway. The current pavement, right now, there's asphalt. There's 2 different layers of asphalt from the mid-90s and then the mid-70s, and then the concrete underneath it is from the 40s, 1940s still. So the existing, it's done really well, and it's withheld the test of time, but it's time to start looking at fixing that up. As we were in the process, we had the green light to start moving forward. The FAA said, whoa, 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 let's look at your runway ends. The 2 runway ends that you can see on the PowerPoint there, 3.1 and 3.6, are very closely aligned. So there's 2 specific airports that we've talked about, Aberdeen and Lexington, Kentucky, where they've actually had accidents based on pilot confusion because those runway ends are closely aligned. So the FAA has requested, instead of doing the runway reconstruction project, to take a step back and do a master plan and look at what we can do to make sure that pilots aren't getting confused and using different wrong runways. One's very much longer than the other one, so if they were the same length, maybe it would be a little bit different, but they're over 6,000 feet, and then the current crosswind is 5,500 feet. So if they were needing all that runway length, it would be a potential safety hazard.
Can I just ask a question as we go? Is that okay? Or would
Yes,
you rather
yep.
I say? I'm just curious, how often do we have 2 airplanes coming in at about the same time in Mitchell?
Not very often. Same in Aberdeen. It's not a very busy, it's more for taking off than it is for landing, making sure that they're turning all the way to get on the primary runway, or making sure that they understand that they're on the shorter, and the way that the taxiway is angled, the FAA thinks that it might be easier to take off the shorter runway than it would to take off the longer runway. Basically, a master plan would flesh out all of those questions and concerns. To our knowledge, nobody's ever had any issues in Mitchell, which is great. And now that it's been identified, we should study it. So the next step, instead of doing the runway reconstruction, is to look at what can be done to decouple those runways. Shift the runway end just a little bit so that they're not so closely aligned. So the FAA is recommending that the city take a step back and do a request for qualifications and look at getting a new consultant, or going through the process to look at hiring a consultant to do planning and environmental services. The city did this a few years ago for engineering services, but there wasn't any planning or environmental on the horizon. So it's a process that has to happen. But at the same time, we would recommend going with the DOT. They do an annual pavement maintenance project to make sure that the pavement that's already out there is maintained and it doesn't fall below any thresholds. There's some crack sealing. There's some larger, major crack areas that need to be identified and looked at, and then put like a surface treatment or something on top of that pavement just to get it by for the next 4 to 5 years until after a master plan can be done. So the next steps would be go through the RFQ process. Kyle's very well aware of how that works and can walk you guys through that process. It's a requirement every 5 years at a minimum. And then also, like I said, look at doing some maintenance on the runway and continue with that South Dakota pavement maintenance project that you guys have participated in quite often throughout the years. And then after that, hire a consultant, get the ALP done, master plan. Airport layout plan is the visual, and your master plan is the words. And then look at jumping back into the environmental and the design for that project. So it was a little bit of a shock to kind of go backwards a little bit, but I think it's a good thing for the city to get a nice updated plan and look at what's out there and make some good judgmental calls on what needs to happen.
Okay, I have a question. So thinking about timeline, so in the next year or two, we'll have to do the maintenance of the runway the idea to keep the number above 60 or as high above 60 as possible.
Yes.
And can I think of this as the FAA kind of politely telling us that if you keep the runway the way it is, the future certification is in question and you need to study changing it, or it won't be, they won't cover us anymore? I mean, I'm saying you're going to change it and we have something that you don't like, so please study making that change?
They want us to study it. They haven't come out and said anything to that nature, but they do participate 90% in all of your airport improvements out there. And so
that's what I'm thinking. So if we don't do it and they say, well, okay, now some of that money's not there anymore, then
in order for us to get their support to get a grant to
keep
do that
going,
runway project,
we've got to do
they
a
would
study
like us
to look
do
at a
that.
master plan.
Yes.
And
They're not necessarily saying we can't apply to do that,
correct.
but
Could we have a master plan 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Is that about the timeline of that?
we could get one done pretty quick within a year.
We don't have one budgeted, obviously.
Right. So that, the process will take a little bit of time to go through that RFQ to follow that. It'll take a couple months to do that first. Kyle, do you want to talk about your budget?
One other, and that's fine. I just wanted to kind of understand that timeline. The other part is, so and I think we need to keep doing the runway maintenance. What happens if we keep doing it and it falls below 60?
It'll still be usable and it won't drastically drop below 60.
Okay, it doesn't.
So not
don't
typically
know
not
how
that
they
early, yes.
all the measurement.
Our office actually works with the DOT to do the pavement condition index
Okay.
survey every 3 years. So 2021.
So it's not like it's going to go to 20
No.
in a year or something?
No, there'll be, there's just some areas that are in need of much more work than other areas on that project.
Okay.
So it should still last, even with some maintenance for the 4 to 5 years that it'll take to get through the planning and the design for that next project.
So other typical airports that don't have the intersection of the two runways is just, there's further distance between the two ends, or how? I mean, I can say, okay, master plan, I've got to take one entire runway 5,500 feet and move the whole thing over 200 feet.
Right.
That's
A big
huge
Right.
cost.
So Aberdeen had a very similar orientation to this, and, their runway ends were like this.
Yep.
and they shifted one down.
Just shifted one
Just-
down, okay.
And it was at the same time that, that runway needed some maintenance and reconstruction. And that's why they,
So they
that's why
added a couple hundred feet?
they took off a
further up.
few and they put some down.
Okay.
So our runways are gonna get a little long. One of them's
Well,
gonna get a little long.
somewhere in there.
Or they'll be the same, you'll just take some off the top and put it on the bottom, or vice
Okay.
versa. It's that's why it has come up, because we were looking at fixing this runway anyway, so it's a good time to try and fix that problem while you're already gonna spend the money.
And Kyle, as part of this discussion, and I had the conversation with you about the 75-foot versus 100-foot width and all that kind of stuff, that's all coupled in all of this?
It is, Mr. Mayor and Council, so we have a couple of things we've been talking with them about, and that's keeping the width that we like, but that'll fall back on to a design after we get the planning and the master plan completed. So right now, the most important thing we made sure that we had talked about was maintaining what we have right now so that we can use it until we get that master plan done and the reconstruction design completed and started. So the DOT assured us that they would work with that on a maintenance plan.
Within that master plan, we've also discussed with Kyle looking at economic benefits of the airport and doing those kinds of things. And we would flesh out all of those questions right in the master plan, so we know what's justified in the eyes of the FAA before we even get into the design. We'll know what the city of Mitchell can justify with the length and the width and potential economic improvements, and anything else that gets flushed out through that scope of services process. Anything else that you guys would like to see in that master plan, we could try and work
And so
with.
we'll bring Mark into that as well for the economic development.
Thank you.
Action to award bid for Corn Palace basketball backstops project 2019-50. As you know, we went out and got some pricing to add a couple of backstops. However, the price that came in is well over the budget, and so we would recommend that this would be denied, and we'll go back and look at how we can do this in another way.
Have we approached either Dakota Wesleyan or the school to see if they wanted to potentially, or?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
One,
And then is this bid open for 30 days?
I think it's 45.
45?
Right.
So instead of denying it, if there is some interest on the other end, should we table it?
Well,
Or you just, I don't know if
I
there
guess
would be
that's
or
up to
not.
you guys, but we do not have the money, the Corn Palace does not have the funds to be able to absorb it, so without getting either some assistance or, I'll get some assistance, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I guess if we deny it tonight and somebody does come back and said, I'd like to make up the difference, what,
We could rebid it.
but if we already have a bid right now, that's still live for the next 30 days or so.
At least till the next council.
Table don't hurt us at all,
No.
anybody doing it, because now the numbers are out. Maybe, like you said, there might be a private donor, or maybe all some discussion comes from somebody. A table don't hurt us by any means, and once it runs out, it runs out.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I believe it is 45 days.
I think it is. I think that's correct.
Because obviously, we're just starting the season right now, and, and if we rebid it, then we have to go through the process, and it's probably, if somebody, one of the groups do on it, then more than likely January or February is as soon as you're
We
probably.
may
gonna be-
run into, trouble getting them in this year because of the crowds and the use of the Corn Palace for ball games.
And I guess the next question is, if we do table it, do we have to actually bring it back to deny it, or does it just run its course?
You'd still want to bring it back to formally reject it.
2 weeks?
I think that would be fine. You can see if there's any interest in that time, and if there is or isn't, you guys can consider tabling it another time, probably before the
We have time.
timeline would run out.
I would say go to the second meeting in November, because your Corn Palace director will come on board November 4th. So then he would have some time if he wanted, he's gonna be learning the ropes, so he'll be busy, but if he found the time to talk to somebody, maybe he could.
Well, just publicly, we're getting it out there, you know, the word might be. I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Motion to table? Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Faber, right? You said it.
To the 18th of November?
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for Corn Palace Plaza Phase 2, Project 2019-48. This one did come in under the proposed budget, I believe, by about $19,000 or $18,000 and some change.
Right. Mr. Mayor and Council, so the bids were opened on October 8, and the low bidder was Pitts Corporation in the amount of $521,464. There was an alternate bid, 1 and 2, a different type of wood that is included, and some additional concrete work. The Public Works and Engineering will oversee a lot of this project, as well as Lyle at Confluence. There will be a contract with Confluence for continuing services, and the Public Works will work with a testing group to ensure the concrete and the steel is constructed in accordance with the plant's specifications.
Is there a penalty on delay?
There is a penalty on delays.
And
Yes.
how much is that per day?
I'd have to look at it,
Okay,
but
fine. But there is a penalty.
there is a
There's a
penalty.
liquidated
Yes, sir.
damages on it.
Yes, there are.
Move to award the bid for the Corn Palace Plaza Phase 2 project to Pitts Corp.
Motion by Mrs. Charles.
Second.
Mr. Allen? Yes. Second by Mr. Allen.
Question, and there had been discussion, and then we're probably still trying to get donations for naming things.
Yes.
Potentially either in the stage or the shade structure,
Correct. And
or
there is-
both,
we have been
or
approached by
whatever else.
one entity about the stage. And
Okay.
that will be coming to you later.
And then Kyle, did you say that you would not recommend the alternates?
No, we did recommend
Oh, you
including
did?
the alternates. Yes, there was a harder type wood included with that, which we want to include, and additional concrete work that might be included as well in the plaza and behind where the stage is. We also would look to getting this started with the foundation work, and if we could get that started before the ground freezes, that's the goal, and then they would finish up working through the framing, and then I believe the rest of the plantings and the rest of the work by May.
Once they get the footings in the ground, be able to work above the ground and get everything done.
So just to clarify, Susan, the staff recommendation was for the base bid, alternate 1 and alternate 2. Is that your understanding of the motion?
Yes.
Oh, I heard you say all that. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-72, a plat of Lot M1C, a subdivision of a portion of previously platted Lot M1 in the northeast quarter of Section 15, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th prime meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Mr. Putnam?
Yes, this plat was presented to the Planning Commission and did recommend approval. You can kind of see where, on the aerial where this is, right at the dead end of Northridge Park, and then that area that's identified in red is where this plat is. So it's going to be for a house.
I was curious, is that a road that goes then to the
It's a private
east?
road that goes
Okay.
there, and then if you saw on the plat, there's a access easement that would allow to the, there, you can kind of see that little
Oh, that
easement
little
in
tiny
between
piece,
there.
uh-huh.
Approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mrs. Charles. You gotta be a little quicker, Mr. Smith. All those in favor, whoop, excuse me. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-73, a plat of Lot 10, Block 4 of the Woodland Heights, First Edition, subdivision Lot 2, Cranes Edition, of Southeast Quarter of Section 34, Township 103 North, Range 60 West of the Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, this was presented to the Planning Commission and did recommend approval. This is down in the Ethan Lumber Project. Just to remind you that that is also part of a TIF district for, that encompasses the Lloyd properties up against Spruce Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-74, a plat of Lot 23 of the Island First Edition, a subdivision of Southeast Quarter, Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Well, all three of these are all in the same subdivision, so we'll just kind of help move things along. But you can kind of see on the aerials where these are located. This one was presented to the Planning Commission, did recommend approval. So it's right at the end of the cul-de-sac there.
Move to approve 2019-74.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-75, a plat of Lot 45 of the Island First Edition, subdivision Southeast Quarter, Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, same song, different verse. So, same area. And this too was presented to the Planning Commission.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-76, plat of Lot 50 of the Island First Edition, a subdivision of Southeast Quarter, Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, approved by the Planning Commission and recommend your approval.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Allen. Discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2019-77, a plat of Lot J, a subdivision of previously platted Lot S of Maui Farms, Second Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, this was recommended by the Planning Commission, and this one is in that area where those storage units, or storage buildings, I should say, are the end of Sam Street, if you take Maui Drive and come to the end. And this is where it has its own kind of a mini plan development district. And so, as you can see on the plat, there's just a few left, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Rice.
Have we had any comments at all with the individuals out there, either way?
I
positive or
haven't
negative?
received anything. I believe you've got a set date for a assessment project, I believe, but that's later down.
Hearing coming up.
Right.
Perhaps, maybe, then you may.
It's an attractive street name, I can tell you that. Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing on proposed resolution and necessity for Sam Street.
Oh.
Skipped one.
You skipped one.
Yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. Action on, it's all plats. Action on resolution R 2978, vacation of the alley right-of-way described as the south half of the north-south alley in the 700 block of West 7th Avenue, Block 24, Raleigh's Second Edition. We don't want to miss this one.
Okay. I'll try to refresh your memory a little bit. If you probably saw some comments in the Planning Commission minutes, just to kind of refresh your how this process works is once we receive a petition to vacate then what we do is we have to do a public notice, and then you set it, then we have a public hearing, and that's hence what you're here. However, it's, our practice has been to get some feedback from the Planning Commission, even though it may not be statutorily required, but you probably saw that they did have a discussion about this, and their recommendation was to delay approval of the vacation until the utilities for Mr. Beshin was finalized. So just also, I see Mr. Beshin's here as well as the petitioners, so I will let them speak. But one before I sit down, I just wanted to kind of clarify on the map. There's two X's, I don't know if you can see them from this distance, but the petition is only relating to the south half of that block. That aerial photo is a little misleading because it's off the county's website, but the alley actually does go all the way through. They just haven't modified that map. We discovered that when they were doing title search, that alley is not vacated on the north half. It actually does go through. However, again, the petition is only dealing with is the south half. And so with that, I will just yield to the petitioners and perhaps anybody else who wishes to comment on it. So.
Hi, good evening, City Councilors. I'm Dwight Stadler. I live at 700 West 7th Avenue. We are in concert with Janelle and Fran Contreras petitioning to have that south half of the 700 block alley right-of-way vacated. If you recall from when the rezoning issue was going on with the would that be northeastern portion of the block there was some discussion about the alley right-of-way back then, and Mr. Betchen at that time said that he had no use for it. One of the things is, as it's surveyed, if you recall, is that if most adversely would affect, if the alley was opened, it would most adversely affect the Contreras family, as their garage encroaches partway onto it as well as their patio. So the other piece of it is if you recall when Mr. Betchen was getting rezoning and his building project there was, as I understood it, there was no access for his business allowed off of West 8th Avenue. And so if you run that alley completely north, if you were to put in the alley, then you'd be giving him access, which you already said he's not supposed to have. He has indicated that, and I don't mean to speak for him, he can speak for himself on it, but as I understand it, he has two entryways, one from Minnesota Street onto his property and one off of Montana Street. And I think, as I understood it, he was looking to verify drainage, sewer and water. So as to whether, for that verification that he could connect into Montana Street. And I just lost my train of thought. So wherever I was headed anyway, we're requesting that this alley right away. We don't see a foreseeable use for it. It would really, it does more harm than it would do good to open the alley. It's subject to your questions. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Besher, have you found out where the water and sewer is that can hook into your building?
It does appear that there's water and sewer on Montana Street. My only concern was if for some weird reason that I can't get the right drainage for the drain, that we might have to go to 7th Street. And I don't foresee that as being an issue, but my plumber could not get in there because of all this storm damage. He is actually scheduled to start work on it on Wednesday. And so by Wednesday or Thursday, I should actually know if we can tie everything in. And I'm all for them closing the alleyway. I just want to make sure that I can get water and sewer into my property so that I'm not landlocked, because there is not water and sewer on 8th or Minnesota Street. And matter of fact, I would be in favor of closing the alleyway on the north half, but I was just waiting till my water and sewer actually was brought into the job site, or onto the property. So I don't know if it can be tabled for 2 weeks, or if that throws a whole, you know,
Yeah, I don't know why it would. It's been like this for how many years?
but if, once the water and sewer's in by the end of next week, I'm hoping, I'm all for letting them close it, and I would probably be at that time trying to petition to close the north half.
Do you have a problem with 2 weeks? Do you have a problem with that?
I mean, he's had a year.
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry, this is Dwight Stadler again. There is that side of us, I know Janelle just commented, he's had the better part of a year to make this determination, and waiting this late in the game is kind of causes some anxiety. You know, there's part of me that says, yeah, we can wait the 2 weeks or whatever, but what I would like is an approval. Oh, I know the other piece of it was, as Mr. Betcham was saying, vacate the northern half. My understanding of that is if you were to go that route and vacate the whole thing, then all 4 property owners, the bordering or abutting up to that, would have to agree to it and sign a petition to that, and that would set us back. And would we have to go back through the reapplication process? Because we're simply, this is our request to vacate the south half. I know that when Janelle had called the 811 number and had them come out to survey it for utilities, there are no utilities that cross that. However, I do understand from the Planning and Zoning Committee that, and I understand Mr. Betcham's view where he might need to tie into 7th Avenue as opposed to Montana if the drainage becomes a problem. I don't know why it would. But I'm not in the construction business and I can't validate that. I don't know if it's possible to approve this with the contingency, some type of contingency or something, but it's like we need to get on with it, is part of my feelings. And I don't want to oppose Mr. Betcham and wreck his business, but he's had the better part of a year to deal with this already, so I don't know.
I just have a question. I'm wondering, so let's say that hypothetically that they have to put the utilities in that area. Once they're put in, then then is it still possible to vacate the alley after that's done, if that were their only access? I don't know how this works.
Well, you'd have
Well,
a utility easement for it.
You'd have,
A utility easement going across.
Yeah, that's
Vacated.
Right.
but you could still,
that was my understanding when we were going through the application process for this or getting the petition ready, was that any utility company, even if you vacate the alley right-of-way, utility companies can still maintain an easement that if they need to access that, they can. But then that's where we got into, are there any utilities on it? And they're not. But a point was brought up about then if it's vacated and there's no utilities there, then it becomes our private property. And therefore, at that point, then Mr. Betcham would have to come to us and correct me if I'm wrong. Forgive me,
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understood it, then he would have to come to the private property owners to request to have access to put in that drainage? Is that correct?
Yeah, because the utilities aren't there right now, when you'd be doing the vacation, you can't vacate it subject to the existing easements. So he'd have to negotiate privately with the property owner where the utilities would be located. Whereas if you were to wait and see if he needed to put anything in that location and the alley was still in place, those utilities could go in, and then the alley could be vacated at a later date, subject to those utilities that were actually in place.
Now, I do have one other thought on this, and that is that even if he had, let's say there would be, he'd have to go down that way in order to link in. Then what happens in the future, you vacate that alley right of way. At that point, that's their driveway, meaning the Contreras family. So if there was any type of a drainage problem or sewer line problem, he's going to be tearing up the driveway. And that's not a good thing. I view that as a negative. And I'm not sure why. It's just impossible for me to understand why he can't tie into Montana. But again, I'm not an engineer. I'm subject to your questions? No? Thank
4
you.
days? Dave, you need 4 days to get the plumber in there?
Yeah, I was told that, they're finishing up a job tomorrow, and they should be on to my project, or moving it in there on Wednesday. And we did get held up on our project, just waiting for our building permit, because we had to get all the drainage issues, straightened out, and, I guess just getting the building plans, but, yes, they said that by Wednesday, they should be, moving their equipment onto our property and starting.
I was going to ask Neil, I brought the minutes up from the planning commission, and it was discussed last week and indicated that people did give testimony at that point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, Danny, were you there that day? You weren't able to make it? I don't know, Mayor, were you happen to be there?
I did not.
Okay. So, Neil, I was going to ask on the planning commission, they voted 5-0 to go ahead and table until they actually found out where the utilities were going to be located.
Correct, that's just their recommendation.
Right.
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 That was just their recommendation to you to table it, so. But again, this is the official public hearing, and so.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I
right.
just
But
wanted
that
to
was
make
just
sure
their thought.
Everybody was aware of the fact that that was
Yeah.
on record.
Right, both
And I'm
of
in
Mr. Bishop was.
favor of vacating this, but I don't know why we wouldn't wait 2 weeks just to make absolutely sure then we know what we're dealing with. And hopefully, Mr. Besham gets his plumber over there to get all those questions answered, because it looks like the planning commission had the same questions.
Right. And Mr. Basham wants to work with it that way too, so I'm going to make a
Well,
motion. to
hang
go-
on, before we get into motions, I can kind of go through the procedure a little bit, because there was an issue raised at the planning commission about if this gets tabled, do they have to start over? And I didn't have an answer for that at the time of the planning commission, but I told them I'd have a new, I'd look into it by the time we had the hearing tonight. Based off the way that I'm reading the notice requirements for the petition to vacate, I do think that they would have to start over if this is tabled. I guess it's up to you on whether that's a plus or a minus. You know, you can decide on the merits tonight, or you can decide that this should be brought back at a later date and maybe have the entirety of that blocks alley reconsidered at that time. But if you're going to be tabling it, we'd have to recomply with the notice provisions, and that's probably going to put them at least a month out by doing that, so.
Come on up.
While you're getting up here, I guess 2 weeks, and if it has to go back on a month, I guess as I sit here, I'm not going to support a vacate the alley tonight. I think Mr. Besham is doing his best job to try to work with this. He's spoke public here that he is ready to vacate this as soon as he knows where the sewer is at, that he can go the other way. And I think we all know the consequences. If he can't and we vacate it, then he can't put his utilities in there, because let's not kid ourselves. He's not getting approval going that direction. From what we've all had the last months, they'll say no quicker than they possibly can. So I am not going to sit here and support any kind of vacation. If we got to make a month, like you said, before Rice, it's been 35 years. 1 more month is where I'm at.
So if I understood you correctly just now when you said that, you're not in support of vacating that?
I am, as soon as he knows where his plumbing's at. Sewer.
Okay. But you anticipate that he is, that it's not going to go through over to Montana? Did
No, I
understand?
think it's going to go that, but once again, I'm also not an engineer. Until that is 100% found out that he can go there, then I'll support it. And if it can't go there, After he gets it in through the alley street, then we'll vacate it with an easement, and you guys can keep your garage right where it's at, or Mrs. Contras can, so.
Vacate it with an easement or just vacate?
It would have to be vacated with an easement if he's gonna run a sewer down later, if he has to go that way.
And there's,
Don't make Montana work.
well, here's my parting statement. You're going to vote the way you vote, but we feel like Mr. Betchen's had the better part of a year to deal with this and figure this out. And now when we've applied for that south half to be vacated, it's getting held up because he hasn't done due diligence over the past year. And that's a little frustrating for us. We've been fair, we've waited, but you're going to vote the way you vote. We've requested for the south half of the block, and we're not seeking the north half of the block. And I don't want to start over again, because if you go all the way through, then you got to have all four parties joining that property or butted up to it, and then we got to start that whole application process over again. We're not in favor of that. So you're going to vote the way you vote. Thank you.
Any reason why you guys haven't been here 5 years ago?
Because we've only lived here for a year.
Okay, and Mrs. Contras, how long have you been at that spot?
It was never an issue.
Yeah, it was never an issue until the rezoning, I think. It's been vacant it's been an unopened alley for 20 years. Resolution 1670.
20 years.
Say again?
It's been longer than that, but I've
Well,
been there 20 years.
Resolution 1676 was signed and dated April 1999. So it's been over 20 years, and that alley right-of-way has never been opened. And I don't see any foreseeable use. Northwestern Energy, they've only got one entrance off of Montana Street, and it's a sterile environment. There's no waste or recycling, anything coming out of there. Anyway, that's it.
I would just say that, you know, if,
You asked me whether should I deny it or should I table it?
I would recommend denying it if that's the route that you're going instead of tabling. It'll be cleaner in the long run if there's just a reapplication. There's no, like with variances and things like that, there's a certain window where they can't reapply. We don't have that situation here.
That's what I was just going to ask, to make sure there isn't a 6-month window after denial at all. So,
Right.
So basically, if I make a motion to deny and there is the support for that, obviously, and then Mr. Beshen finds out whatever in the next few days or a week that he finds out, he can go to Montana, they can reapply, get this thing vacated within a month or whatever, next time it goes through planning and all the stuff, the 20-day step kind of attitude again, so.
Correct.
Okay. Motion to deny.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Sabers to deny the vacation of the alley,
So-
south part.
Justin, if I can ask this question then, if Dave does find out within the next few days, can they get put back on the planning commission this upcoming Monday, or I suppose you need time to send out letters? Or,
Neil, do you want to?
The statute requires is, yeah, we can put planning commission whenever it's convenient. What it does is the statute requires 2 public notices in the local paper, and then there's a 10-day waiting period after the second notice. So you're probably looking at the middle of November at the second meeting, because they got to have it advertised for 2 consecutive weeks, and then there's got to be a 10-day gap. So that's what you're looking at. Planning commission would be whenever we can schedule it. Yeah, I could put them on for this next time, but you're not going to see it till, if we got to republish. That's how it works.
but that would be the fastest route if we do vote to deny it and he does find out that Montana is, then they could be on Monday and get the clock started.
For the planning commission, but you're
For
right.
planning.
Yeah.
But I understand with us.
You're going to be, yeah, the hearing would be probably, well, it depends how
Which is-
quick I
which
can
is
get
a
a
month.
notice, right. As soon as I get a good month away.
And it'd be the same timeline if you were trying to table it, but I think think it just looks cleaner if you deny it and
Right.
it's
Well,
reapplied.
what I was getting to is at least, you know, there's not going to be any new information that's going to be relayed here other than Mr. Beshan's going to say yay or nay of where the utilities are coming in at. And so with the planning commission, at least you start the clock, and then there's the potential of being here on the second meeting, which is the 1 month.
It just gets sent back to planning commission.
And I don't even know if that's necessary,
Oh,
because honestly, I think they all voted in
Right,
favor. It's just not at this time because the utility situation, you know, their motion was to delay approval
Oh, so it would not have to go back to planning?
unless the council wanted it to go back.
No.
You know, I share your frustration that we're looking at a 4-day period that's going to derail this. That's very frustrating. But I guess on the bright side of things, I think it's important for you to know that this will be vacated. I mean, none of us have any intentions of preventing the vacation. It's just a matter of waiting until we have the information that's necessary.
Can it be approved on a contingency?
I would not recommend that, no.
You might want to.
Just because there's a lot that you don't know. You don't know exactly where they're going to have to locate the utilities, if they're going to have to be there. And if you're, well, right, but if you're trying to prepare a recordable instrument, having something like that in there, it's basically going to defeat the purpose of having it recorded.
I think the county be upset with you trying to do something. They're like nice and quick. You have to record these at the,
Register of deeds, right? I mean,
there's really no way to
you want it to be,
describe what you're trying to do.
you don't want there to be some event that needs to happen after the recording takes place, is what I'm getting at.
Do I have a motion and a second to deny? Further discussion? Anybody else in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing on proposed resolution and necessity for Sam Street. I already read it. Yeah. We didn't do it.
At this time, we'll hold the public hearing for Sam Street. Just to give a little background, this is an area that we saw an image. And Nate, if you could go, can you go back a couple slides where you had a layout showing Sam Street? And it might be in that. Yeah. But this is an area on the northwest corner of Lake Mitchell on Sam Street. This is a stub that heads off Maui. This was the original creation of some storage unit lots, and this was in a PD that was set up for this area. And originally, it was just built as a minimum maintenance road that's only got probably 2 to 3 inches of gravel on it. It's probably 12, 14 feet wide. And we've had some requests in the last couple of years about maintaining this area. Being that this road was not, it's in a city street, but it's not built according to city standards. Therefore, the city will not take over maintenance. So when we get those requests, we tell them it's a minimum maintenance area. We don't take care of it. But if you want the city to start the assessment process, then we could start maintaining this area. Last year is when it really went in full force with the type of winter we had. We had a lot of requests to get out there and plow it. We did break through some of the snow drifts a little bit just to try to get access to some of the storage units. But we said we will try to get through there a little bit and just do it on a minor basis just to get through the winter. But we need to go through there and improve this roadway and get it to a paved surface so that we could start maintaining this area. We sent out notices to all the property owners, and we're going from Maui Drive approximately 900 feet north, which is approximately where that trail kind of curves to the east on the upper side of the screen. We will be going in there and we'll be removing all the gravel that's there now, all the dirt and sub-base underneath it. Chances are it's probably laid on top of some black dirt, so we'll remove all that. If this gets approved, we will design the grades, so chances are a lot of it's gonna flow to the north, but being there's no curb and gutter section, it'll drain off into a little swale or a little ditch between the roadway and the buildings. We're gonna attempt to grade the road lower than all the building doors, so we're not creating a drainage issue, and create a design plan with our city engineer. Right now, the roadway is 12 to 14 feet wide in gravel, and our plan is to build a 20-foot wide asphalt mat, 3-inch thick with 8-inch gravel base. Our hope is to get the gravel base built yet this year, and we will, in most cases, we will pave it next year. If we get the gravel base on this year, this fall, we will be in there this winter to plow it, to keep it open, so we can at least get it open through the winter time. We sent notices to all the property owners. If this goes through, hopefully we'll be getting started on this section within the next couple weeks. And once we get this totally completed with all the asphalt surfacing on it, we will send out notices. So if we do the asphalt next year, the notices will go out the following year of what your final amounts are. And then we will have a collection hearing that following year. We will give the property owners 30 days after the collection hearing to pay their amount without any interest. If they decide to where they want it to go on their property taxes, then it would be spread out within 10 yearly payments with 8% interest. The amounts that were estimated in the proposed assessment were a little bit higher amounts, just to kind of take a little bit of the excess gravel that might cost or asphalt that might take us. We usually like to estimate a little bit high, just in case it does come over and we're not asking the property owners for an additional amount of money. So chances are these amounts will probably be 5 to 10% lower. With that, I'm going to invite the public up to ask any questions or comment about this public hearing.
Hi, I'm Craig Bennett. I own one of the portion of the buildings there. First off, the first question I had was why. I guess we got a lot of that. The next part out of it, that's a lot longer than 900 feet. If you're talking from Maui Drive all the way up to the end there at the very north end of the screen, that's more like a quarter of a mile or better. Because 900 feet, I mean, I walked my space off just in my yard alone, and that was about 100 feet, just in my piece of property. And there's 14, I want to say that there's 16 buildings there now.
Are you looking for the plat?
Yeah, it's a long ways. Because just from turning onto Maui Drive to the first building is probably 350, 400 feet.
I can help with some of the math.
Oh, here we go.
Most of the lots are 60 feet wide. There are a couple that are a little wider at first. I trust they measured accurately. I know to get there, it's like 400 feet, because I'm gonna pay for 60% of this. And think the 900 is pretty close. I mean, that kind of yardstick, and they usually will.
I just can't imagine that being 900 feet. I
We
mean,
just measured it on Davidson County Parcel Viewer, and it measured 937.
okay, that's fine then. I guess the other part out of it, if, I don't really understand why we need to have a paved road that really doesn't go anywhere, doesn't serve huge amounts of purposes during any period of time, when if you can put down a good base of gravel, that's, again, you're only looking at plowing snow so that people could get in there and get a snow plow out prior to getting their yards going from there. I mean, that just seems like an awful lot of money for a paved road to go not very far, or for any purpose at all. And then if you're gonna take responsibility for plowing it, then I assume there's gonna be a lot of cost going on every time it snows for you to have to plow that piece of road going north. And then also the repair aspect out of it, you're gonna have to do whatever's required there. And then on top of it, if you're saying you're gonna extend it from 14 to 20 feet, I assume that an easement, I lose 3 feet of my property on either side of the road, is that right?
I will explain all those answers when you're done.
Okay. I guess how also is the cost calculated? I mean, again, I'm a simple guy. I try to divide 900 feet into 55,000 and then take my portion. That doesn't work out. So there's got to be some other non-Navy math way to do this.
Is that new, man?
Yeah, okay. And I think that there's enough room for a total of 18 storage units at the end of the day on it. In looking at it, it looks like there's only 4 or so areas that Chuck Senior is going to pay for. What about the lots that haven't been purchased yet? Are those calculated into this assessment, and how is that being paid for as well?
So all the assessments are paid for by whoever the property owner is. So if there are no lots sold or no lots developed, that is all paid for by that current property owner, which is Chuck McChesney.
Okay, all right. So yeah, if you could just cover the math part, and again, I just don't see a real reason to pave a road when you could throw a good piece of gravel down there. And I'd be more than willing to chip in to cover some gravel. Yeah, there are some ruts that have been there because of the great summer rains that we've had, but I can't imagine it needing pavement at 55 grand. That's a lot of money that we're shelling out.
So I'll talk about the gravel to start with. So we don't have many streets in town that are gravel surfacing anymore. And we're trying to get away from having, city streets that have gravel on it. So that's why we want to have a paved street. Whenever we're out there plowing, we're going to be right out there on Maui Drive, so it's not going to take us a whole lot more to run up Sam Street and clean that up. And whenever we're plowing even gravel alleys and stuff like that, we really have a big issue, especially with with the front end plow. It's hard to plow gravel streets because you're kicking up all the gravel, and we're going to be in there constantly maintaining the gravel surfacing, and we're going to be pushing all that gravel into those lots, into the driveways, and the green area that's in front of your guys' storage sheds. We have, right now, there's 66 feet of right-of-way going through there, so from the center line of the roadway going out is 33 feet, and we're building a 20-foot wide roadway, which means we're only going in 10 feet from the center line. So you're still going to have 23 feet from the edge of the road to your property line. So we're not taking out any of your property. We're going to keep the road maintained within the existing right-of-way. As far as the costs, we put together an estimate that shows how much gravel we're putting in here. So we're putting basically 22 feet of gravel through here because we got to have a foot on each side of the asphalt surface. We figure out 8-inch thick at what our tonnage would be for gravel. We put in a cost in there to tear out all the old material, to go get the gravel, to lay the gravel, to water it, compact it, and commercial asphalt for their charges, to have them come in and to lay a 3-inch mat on top of it. We will only bill out, like I said, these are estimated costs. We will charge you out of what our actual costs are in the project for the gravel surfacing and for the asphalt. And then we add in there a 5% engineering fee and about a 2.5% project interest. That is all figured into what your final amounts are. So the amount that I gave you is just an estimated amount, and the amount typically that you will be final billed would be at a lower amount, but it's based off the actual amounts.
So you technically don't have a contracted value that this is gonna be, and if it takes a period of time, or as you get tearing into the street now, if you find that there's more problems based upon the summer's rains and things like that, there could be a huge or a potentially huge increase of costs as well.
That's why we've already gone through that, added a little bit extra cost to those just in case we run into some issues. And those are built into this price. And we feel very comfortable that when we send in the final numbers, once we're done with this, the amount that you guys will get billed will be lower than what we gave you numbers for. Okay? All right, council, I guess we could go on. Are there any other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Come on up.
My name is Sue Bennett, the other half of Craig and Sue Bennett. My question is, how many times did you plow that last year? And we own property out there, and I've never called and said, hey, I need it plowed because I can't get at the boat that's in storage. We're not people living out there, it's all storage units. So I understand that you would want a city street to be asphalted so that you could maintain it, but these aren't homes. These are barns, basically. So does everybody go out and plow to their barn? I'm just saying, it's not a neighborhood that someone might have a health concern and need their road plowed so they could go to the doctor. These are storage units that have your boat and your motorhome and your pontoon and things. These are not homes. So I guess I understand that you would want a city street, but I think of a city street as houses and people live there. And that's not the case with this. So my question is $55,000 and you're going to plow the way so I can go look at my boat in the winter? I don't understand that. So that's my concern.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd have Kevin respond to how many times we get called to plow that street. I know that last year alone, I got called 3 times, when are we going to plow Sam Street? Probably within a month. I'd like Kevin to respond to that as well. As far as the city streets that are gravel, it's very difficult to maintain through the winter, through the fall and spring timeframe. Those gravel streets don't work until they're frozen. And we're out there on other gravel streets, filling them and grading them all the time. That's why we are not in favor of building gravel streets. We want that asphalt section on top, pavement section on top, so that we can plow it easier.
Last year we received, just pretty much in the 2 big storms, we probably got 6 to 8 phone calls from different people that are out there. Like Terry kind of touched on a little bit, usually about the first storm and the last storm, before your freeze and during your melt, we don't plow a lot of gravel roads, even the ones in town. If we do, we usually use a snow plow pickup or something, because we actually rip the whole surface off on those plow trucks. Even if they're on a float, it still peels them off pretty bad. But yeah, in any accumulation of snow, 3 to 4 inches with the winds out there, we got phone calls from residents that own units out there, and we took some nasty phone calls. If you don't want us to plow it and leave it gravel, that's fine. But give us, as a street department, tell us, yes, you're going to plow it, or yes, or no, you're not gonna plow it, I guess. Because the answer we pretty much gave the residents last year was an unimproved road. I'm not sure it has 2 inches of gravel on it. We can't put plow trucks out there, motor graders or anything to remove the snow out there. So I guess we'd be looking at a little bit of insight on what you want us to do then, if we do receive these phone calls. That's about all I got.
Did you have something to say?
I'm one of the owners out there too. I'm on the west side.
State name, please.
Chuck Stevenson.
You're on television.
Okay. I'm the second one from the end, all the way down to the end. I've been there for 7, 8 years, never complained once. Of course, I do have a plow, so I can, if I do need to get to my shed, I can get there. The only thing I have a problem with is when they do this road, they said there was gonna be like a drainage ditch. Right now, if I have a culvert underneath my driveway, and there's probably 3 or 4 other ones on the west side that have culverts too, because the drainage goes to on the west side of the road, and then it goes to the north, and then it comes over to the railroad track. So if they do that road and don't put a culvert there, I can't back my camper off the road into a dip. So that's one of the reasons why we have culverts underneath our driveway, is so it's flat with the road. That's my only question.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm Bob Martin. I also own a property, a shed on Sam Street. And I share this other gentleman's concern about the expense. I'm retired, so I watch my pennies a little closer than I used to. But all in all, I think it's a pretty reasonable price. It's a very good asset to have up there, to be able to have the street paved and plowed out. I don't go up there every day, but when I do go up there, I expect to be able to get into my shed and get out all right. I think it's a reasonable, it's been a real eyesore all summer long. There's been a couple of mud holes in the middle of the street, and people drive to the side of the mud holes, and they're driving on other people's property, and there's a regular trail on both sides. I think it's a very good prospect. I hope it goes through. It would sure improve the area and everyone's access to it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in response to the previous person, we are going to try to maintain as much of the culverts as there are out there. We don't want you to be driving through a swale to get into your shed where your existing driveway is. So we're going to be working with a lot of those culverts and working with them and try to regrade the ditches and everything. Right where that Lot J is, on the north side of Lot J, you can see there's that drainage swale, and that's where a majority of the drainage for that area goes through there, goes underneath the railroad tracks, and it dries, and it flows into Firestill Creek. So we're going to maintain as much of those culverts as there are there, because they're huge assets for us to make this thing work. If you guys do end up approving this, then those property owners that receive the letters will have a chance to put a petition together to go against it. But we need to have 55% of the majority property owners in order to sign that petition, in order for it to not go through.
So Terry, you have not polled the people that own properties along, do you ever poll them?
We have polled not a majority of the people, but a majority of the property owners, and a majority of the, Chuck owns more than 55% of the property. So he would have the majority, I guess, of the ownership of, and/or the biggest amount of cost to this improvement that's out there.
Terry, did you mention, is it divided by linear
It's divided, it's based off the front footage of your lot. It's not based off square footage, it's based off the front footage.
Okay.
So that's how it is all figured up at.
Just out of curiosity, do the plats start right at the corner of Maui and Sam?
There is two bigger parcels that go from Maui up to where the first storage unit is. So you could see, there's a lot 59 says future, and then lot 62. Those start at Maui Drive. And then they go up to that future I, which there's a building on that lot. And then where it says future A, that is another future lot. So there's two parcels there, then that's where the storage units start to go north.
And I guess, Chuck, you anticipate that there would be residences in those two bigger parcels?
The master plan has those two lots for residences.
Okay.
And I think the same thing Terry probably said. It would be happening from Maui Drive north, and so part of our 60% assessment, the developer, would be that part of the road, and then a little bit north not sold.
Thanks.
I'd just like to say about three things.
State your name, Chuck, just so
Chuck-
the TV crowd knows.
Chuck Mashesky. Do I have to face the camera?
We got you, don't worry.
Because the folks out there, quite a majority beyond myself, I think, want to get snow removed, and that's where this started. And I think the city has said that they'd really like pavement to move snow, because I agreed with everything that the Bennett said, because the cheaper that we can get snow removed, the better. I like it. But that doesn't seem to be the way it's happening. The second thing I'd say is, working with Kyle and his staff, they've been very professional, and I appreciate that, because I started off just trying to save money, but it didn't get very close to that. It's $55,000 is the whole project. But I would also say that of the dozen people out there, I've probably talked to 8 or 9 of them, and I think they're pretty happy to have what they have, and they feel lucky to have a storage building, because sometimes that's hard to have. And so I think we're happy campers, and we appreciate that this will probably happen. And then the very last thing I'd say is, yes, I do have the majority of the votes to see it happen.
Anybody else wish to speak to it? We need a motion on this, Mr. Johnson.
I think the resolution is next on the agenda, so you can close the hearing and move on.
And so if you want, you could close the hearing and move into the resolution.
Close the hearing, move into the resolution. Action on Resolution R 2019-79, declaring the necessity for the construction of base course asphalt paving and accessories, engineering fees, miscellaneous expenses on certain streets in the city of Mitchell. Mr. Croce, I'm guessing you're passing to Mr. Johnson. Huh?
So with this, anybody got any questions?
Is there any other gravel roads out there, Terry?
The only ones that we're trying to get paved in this TIF that's going to be coming up next year. And for.
No, out in Chuck's area,
no.
out here.
The only other area is Anthony on the other side of 407th. And we're actually looking at putting together in the actual, his codified law or the subdivision requirements he had in there, that if, I think it's 50% of the properties are platted in that area, then the city will move. Occupied, the city would move to do an assessment hearing. We're going to be working on this winter. We've been topoing that area to try to figure out, when we rebuild the road, we want to make sure if we can make some drainage improvements in that area, we do that all at the same time, so we're not changing the roadway in later. So we're looking at that this winter, and we're probably going to do an assessment for paving. And if it happens to where we're paving Sam Street, we would hopefully pave Anthony Avenue at the same time.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Church. Further discussion? Anybody else in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. First reading on ordinance O 2019-23, amending Mitchell City Code Section 5-4A3, A1A, regarding garbage buildings for the residential properties. Okay, we do have an amendment to this, to grandfather in certain individuals who are paying for private. Currently, do you have that with you, Mr. Johnson?
I do, but Nate doesn't. No, it's not in the packet. I'm gonna.
Okay, for a little explanation further on this, and Mr. Coach, you can chime in as you see fit. What we're doing here is looking at what Mitchell needs to do in order to take over the recycling as well as incorporate garbage collection into this. One of the things that I heard over the course of the day was that the people who pay for private carriers and them being charged for city. So what we've done is added a clause for to grandfather those people in if they are getting private as of, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Johnson, October 15th of this year?
That sounds correct.
Okay, so that anybody that has a private hauler as of October 15th maintains that private hauler and will not be billed by the city.
And is that anybody with any resident or only single dwelling?
Currently what we're working to change is the residential. Commercial will all go.
Okay, so if I own a fourplex,
residence is being defined as 8-plex or smaller.
so if I own a fourplex and I have commercial pickup right now, I can maintain it?
Maintain it, yes. Correct.
And
Up
what
on the
if I'm, and I don't know how many of these exist or even if they do.
Well, we have 5,800
No,
residents.
how many, I have 6 fourplexes in town. And they're all billed to me. And I have people rent those fourplexes. If a renter changes, do I lose?
As long as if you have a private hauler and you can show that now, you could maintain it.
What if one of my renters, what if I change my mind and I don't pay the garbage bill in the future? Can I still have a private hauler pick them up?
I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to
Okay, so right now I have a fourplex and I charge rent to my people and the garbage is included in their rent. Okay? 3 years from now, economics change and I rent to the people and garbage is not included and I sign them up for private garbage collection. Because you're just saying an account, you're not saying the service address of the account. Because I could own them all over the place. So then if I have a renter that now contracts with a private hauler and the renter changes, and if I read the amendment, then if the renter changes, then that address can't have private hauler anymore.
Okay, legal, I'm going to let you answer that one.
It's designed to maintain current account holder and current provider.
Account holder, but I can, Rice Properties can have accounts at 50 different service addresses.
Correct?
And if one of those service addresses change, do I have to,
For that service address, yes. If they're,
per address? So if apartment number 4 decides that somebody's going to move out and a different person move in, then apartment number 4 has to
no, then
take city garbage?
it's still your account, though.
It might not be my account. I still own the property, but it's not my account.
Well, if you're
It
paying-
depends on how I set up my rental agreement.
No, it depends on how you set up your account with the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I might not have an account with the city. When this passes, I had an account with the city. And then I changed my mind, and I'm not going to charge rent or garbage as part of my rent. Those people were getting, that address was getting garbage privately. Now I'm going to decide that I'm going to not have garbage as part of my rent, and they're going to have to go get their own garbage service.
Does anybody in town do that?
Does it, well, yeah, I know there are some that do that, yes. So how does that work if the person changes or I change my mind because economics change? There's a difference between account and service address, a huge difference.
I don't think you'd be grandfathered in that case.
No, it's designed to force the switch at that point.
Okay, that's fine.
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, if we could go back and kind of understand what the ordinance is, and the reason the ordinance change is proposed. With the amendment, I'll just say that is an administrative nightmare that you're causing staff.
There is software that takes care of that, and Encode can do that without any issue. I work at a company that does service address and account situations every day on hundreds of thousands of accounts, and we only have 5,800.
Yeah.
So you can say all you want, and the software is there, and the city already owns it.
And so
Problem
my
is, though, is
response
that's-
to that
You're
is,
still dependent on the input, so if.
I'm not
People are
worried about
changing.
whether it's easy or not easy for the city to manipulate it. I'm worried about the 1,500 residents in town.
being charged garbage, or I'm lost on what your concern was, Mr. Rice.
Of the comment that it's an administrative nightmare.
Well, since the time that the city has run the garbage and understood how it's being handled, it has not been handled correctly. So it's taken me a year to get a handle on what I think I've, as close as I could, to get that resolved. And again, going in line with the city collections on other first-class municipalities. Aberdeen, as you can see, Aberdeen, Brookings, Huron, Watertown, and Yankton are all in line with charging city garbage collection or mandating that there is city garbage collection. This ordinance would put us in line with, I believe it's Aberdeen, Watertown, and Yankton. So moving forward with that, I understand that there was a lot of comment. There were a lot of comments on maintenance of alleyways and streets, and whether you believe it or not, garbage trucks, the amount of trucks on the street do affect the maintenance. I won't argue the 18% study that's out there. You can believe it or not. It's not specific to Mitchell, but there are studies out there. Additionally, with this ordinance, we would align all city single-family residents to be charged city garbage collection, 8 units and under. We would also mandate that all single-family residences, 8 units and under, would be charged the recycling and collected by the city. And I think this aligns us with a uniform, consistent ordinance. It also, I believe, since we've talked to the private haulers as well, it opens up 1,400 accounts that we would not charge apartment buildings. they would be handled by private residents or private collectors, which I think promotes the business aspect of this. So there are benefits. I understand there's a lot of concern about driving private business away. That's not the case. We've been working with DW. We've been working with private collectors in town, and we would assure that that wouldn't happen. Not assure, but we would work to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's not our goal. Additionally, we would want those commercial businesses to be involved with recycling. And to that effect, we would make the tipping fees more, I guess, more economical to participate in that. The tipping fees for recycling would be less than the tipping fees at the landfill. So I think we are promoting the private businesses, but you would just have to take that into account on the comments that you get. Again, the city has a total of 5,800 residential accounts. The city roughly has 5,500 of that. The private haulers have roughly under 300, 220 accounts. That's 4%. 4%. So we're talking about 96% of the residences. I guess if there are any questions for me or Mr. Mayor, Council, if you want the public to come up and comment, we'd be happy to address that.
Hi, I'm Dan Buchelman. I made some notes on my phone here, so I'll refer to that. I was surprised to see the paper this weekend, and I don't necessarily get the time to read the paper every weekend. So first off, I think there should have been some upfront discussion of this a little more than 2 days advance notice to the public. I bought a fourplex last June. It's near my house. So Steve's example was interesting to me anyway. When I bought that property, I wanted to control who a nearby neighbor was, but I also wanted to do it for an investment and growth and those kinds of things. It needed some work, so I've been gradually working on that property. When I bought it, it had 4 garbage canisters for the 4 separate units. My garbage is included for my tenants, so I take care of that. Immediately, the concern became that every day when there was garbage pickup, it was on city garbage. We had to go over and drag 4 garbage canisters out into the street and then turn around and then at the end of the day, drag them back out of the street because there's no alley access. These garbage canisters are next to a garage, so they're a little secluded and protected from the wind so they don't blow over. I contacted the city and they would not come and retrieve them, so we had to deal with that ourselves. Now, myself, my wife, and my son, we can handle that when we're around, but if I'm gone, a 90-gallon garbage canister full of stuff to drag it across the lot into the street and down the slope and then back up is challenging. When there's snow, it's a whole lot worse. I heard from some friends that Petrix would take care of that for me, so I called Petrix and laid out the scenario, and they said, yeah, no problem, we'll come grab them, we'll take care of them, and we'll haul them away. And they said, by the way, when you have a rental, occasionally you're gonna have things where you have some excess garbage to get rid of. You tear out some carpet or something. If you bundle it up nice, get it close, we'll charge you a little extra, but we'll take care of that too. Now, in the past, in dealing with the city, if I threw out extra garbage, you got kind of a nasty letter about not having all your stuff in your 90-gallon container. And that doesn't happen often, but they were understanding and flexible with that. At my house, which is nearby, I have an alley access. And we have our garbage picked up in the alley currently because there's nowhere convenient to put those garbages near the house and near the street. I understand this plan would do away with alley pickup. Is that
No,
correct?
That's not on this agenda.
Okay, might be down the road then. There was just rumors of that. Because hauling a garbage canister, a 90-gallon garbage canister down an alley through the snow 6 times last year would have been nearly impossible because we had 6 different events where there was snow before they plowed the alley. So it's something that I'm certainly conscious of. Looking at the list of cities, that have city pickup, this says city pickup, but it doesn't necessarily say there are no private haulers. There are several communities in the city that, in the state that do allow private haulers. Sioux Falls has, I believe it's 13 private haulers. So some of their streets get covered by 13 garbage trucks.
Sioux Falls is only private haulers.
Right, but 13, right? And we're talking about 2.
They have 250,000 people too, which makes a big difference.
Would mean more trucks on more roads. I mean, I don't want to argue it with you, but that's more trucks on more roads, not less trucks on less roads. So the discussion was that this was going to stop road decay, that our roads are in such bad shape that we need to take 1 garbage truck a week off those roads, and that's going to stop our road decay. But if we have that big of a problem with our roads in town, we shouldn't allow semis on residential streets, and we currently do. A A lot of communities ban semis other than for specific purposes on residential streets, but we allow fully loaded semis. I took a picture of one this Sunday that was sitting there, that's there every week. So I think we have varying interest here as far as how we're addressing the public roadways. Let's see, I have a couple of notes. The state of the alleys in town is really because of rainfall this year, and in all my history, they haven't plowed those alleys more than, or graded those alleys more than about once a year. So I don't think this would have any drastic effect on the condition of our alleys. And then I had a question that maybe someone can address. Are sales tax paid on the city garbage pickups? Are they?
City sales, not state.
Not state sales tax. And when you have Petrix pick it up, you pay sales tax. So if you were figure an average bill of $40, I'm guessing at that, and do the math across the 500 or 550 customers they're talking about over a year, it adds up. It's probably $16,000 or something like that off the top of my head.
City's paying on their sales tax.
City pays 2%, state's 4.5%.
So you give up,
Well, yeah,
you give up 4.5.
he would end up paying the state sales tax too, yes. So,
Yeah,
but
so
that
you-
doesn't come back to the city.
You would reduce city sales tax collections by doing
No,
this.
we wouldn't, because we're still getting that from both of them.
You're paying 2% city sales tax now
Yeah.
on city garbage.
What you're
I'm saying
saying
when I have a
is-
private hauler, I'm paying 6.5, aren't I?
Right, but
Correct.
he's
Yeah.
paying state sales tax, so the
Right.
money that you're.
Oh, so we're
paying
taking it from the
extra goes to
state.
the state,
Right.
not to the
Taking it
city.
from the state. Last thing I have to say is I think it's a bad road to go down when we start trying to get rid of private business. The reason I went to this private business is not because I necessarily knew them or I had some referrals that people said they were good at what they did, but they provided a service that I needed, and they did it really well. And the city wouldn't. I asked, and they refused. So I found somebody who could, and you're going to take that away from me. And that's my concern.
No, the intent isn't to take it away from you, but, and with the amendment, it stays as it is.
But that stops me if I buy another property. You know, how are you going to have
Well, if you buy another
landlords that buy
property,
more
that would
properties?
change it, yes, that
Right.
part of it, just that property.
And we know that that's a death sentence to have that, it stays with the property if you own it, because properties are going to change hands. Average properties change hands something like every 23 years. So in just a few years, you'll decrease their amount of business to a point where it won't make sense for them to do business, and all of a sudden, they'll say, we're going to drop service for everybody, and several hundred people will be without service and have to switch to the city anyway. So the economics stop making sense. I'll let someone else comment.
Just to address that, a couple of comments. The reason we have the first reading and second reading is so that we can notify the public, and so they do have a chance to come to the council and express their concern. I'm a little offended to say that we should talk about something before we bring it to council so that people can come and comment and bring their concerns to the council. So that's absolutely incorrect. We are working on a volunteer program for people that have a problem bringing their garbage to the curb. We want to help with that. We do not want to have, bring in more problems to the elderly or the people that can't bring their garbage cans out. That's not the point. The city does provide spring cleanup. That's incorrect to say that we don't provide extra services. We do. This year, we had 4 branches clean up at no charge to the residents at the cost of the city. So the city incurs quite a bit of costs for the citizens. And the comment to Sioux Falls regarding Sioux Falls has a number of different private owners, private collectors. They do, absolutely. We have 2 in the city. We had one that was interested in recycling for a long time that, to my understanding, had a very, very poor reputation and was not satisfactory. That's why the city got involved with recycling. We want to work with the private collectors. We have talked to them. We're interested in working with them again with the commercial accounts. They could say I'm a liar, but the fact is they were very happy that we went with single-family residential, that the city went and went with the single-family residential collection and to get into that process. And they were happy to work with us. They may say something different now and call me a liar, but that's the fact.
This has also started in January, when we started talking about recycling, so it hasn't just sprung on you in the last week. So, go ahead, Steve.
I'm Larry Petrick, owner of Petrick Sanitation. Most of you know me here. The only thing that I do is I wasn't notified about this. Not one thing. I could have had a phone call instead of from one of my customers. I don't think it was right.
I dropped the ball on that, I will admit, I apologize.
You know, the recycling is a good thing. If you think you can do it, I tried it, you denied me. Okay, I want to help you do this.
When you, oh, you're talking about when we renewed Dependable?
Right.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
I agree with you.
And you guys all said it wouldn't work. So now you're
Well,
gonna
wait a
do it.
minute, don't say you guys all, I wasn't
Well,
on
the
the
council.
council then.
So now you
Some
want to
some
do
of us
it.
weren't
That's
here.
okay,
Yeah.
you know? I
Sure.
still like to keep doing this because it saves from going to landfill. But when I wasn't notified about taking the residents away from me, I don't think that was right.
We're not trying to take them away from you. You know, everybody,
The initial was that. The initial.
well, yeah, you're right, there would be additional costs if they were to stay with you.
You
You're
could
absolutely
still
right.
have, with this, you could still have private recycle pickup, but you're going to pay the city and you're going to pay private recycle
Correct.
or private garbage pickup. Why are we making them pay twice? That's my question.
That's what the addendum that we put out changes.
That doesn't, that, yeah.
Well, it changes it.
I spoke my piece on that, and that, as Mr. Buchelman said, that's just a short stopgap.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, Sharon.
I'm missing football. Anyway, Tara Valesky again, and you guys haven't seen me for months, so.
It's been
Anyway,
an hour.
for what?
It's been an hour.
Oh, okay, an hour. Anyway, I'll tell you what. I bet if you took a vote of the people of Mitchell, South Dakota, they would be all for capitalism and competition, and they would all be for Petrick and meet 'em up. And I don't know why you guys don't give us a choice who we want to use, you know? If I want, now that you pick up Fourplex, Petrick, I might want to give them a call because you know what? They might be cheaper than the city. And another thing I don't think is fair is recycling. How many people in Mitchell recycle? Okay, what percentage do you think recycles? 20%?
26 is the number that we.
26%, okay? So there's 74% that do not recycle. And many of these people are senior citizens, are working people, they're on a fixed income. They have to pay $4 a month, like me and my renters, whether we recycle or not. And I don't recycle because there's nothing to recycle. I don't get the paper, I don't drink out of bottles. But it's not fair to, especially these senior citizens that are on a fixed income. You think $4 to you guys is nothing, but to, people that are working class, seniors, where, okay, they got to pay $4 for recycling. Then their cable goes up. That's another $4. Then maybe their phone bill goes up. Their water and sewer goes up. Well, you add all the things, their taxes go up. Their rent goes up. When you figure it out over a year's time, $4 here, $5 here, $3, that's a lot of money when you add it up. So I think people should have the choice whether they want to recycle or not, or have drop-off places, and maybe let Mr. Petrick bid on it, bid against you guys. And I'm all for private enterprise and competition. And to be honest with you, I think the city needs to stay out of some things. But I think we should have our choice to pick who we want to pick up our garbage and recyclables. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
My name's Lori Benson. I'm a resident of Mitchell, South Dakota, and my fiance, Jimmy Iceberg, works for Petrick's. And we depend on his income. And 120 residents a month out of his salary does not fly with me. And it doesn't fly with the Petrick's people either. I own 3 houses And my renters, when they move out now, are gonna have to go to the city because they pay for their garbage. You don't even know how upset I am right now. This idea right here came from Petrix, and you turned him down. This came from Petrix. And you are shutting down every single business that they can possibly have with residential in the next year after October 15th. This is ridiculous. This is monopolizing the city. And you are taking away my man's job, the guys at Miedema's job. You can look at me, it's okay, because I'm talking to you.
I don't think you should direct that comment to me. I
Well,
was
I
not
think
here
so.
to take away anything from Petrick. I was not here.
Okay, you weren't here
So
for
you
it.
are
That's
personally
fine.
attacking me.
Hold it. Calm down, all right?
All right.
Speak to the council, don't speak to Mr. Croce. Council's making the decision.
I understand. I'm sorry. Anyway, like he said, these residents cannot haul their garbage out. They're 84 years old. He fell last year doing garbage, broke his shoulder, tore his tendon, and had to take 4 months off because the streets weren't plowed, and garbages cannot get over humps of ice that have frozen and everything. Okay? First of all, you're talking about like fourplexes, like you said. There is one specifically right next to Bob's Lock and Key. There is no way they can put their garbages on Sanborn. They have to be taken in the alley. They have to be. Okay? My house, all three of my houses are right on the street. I have no problem with that. But we do have a 93-year-old lady living across the street that this man picks up every single week. He walks up and gets her garbage from her driveway and drags it down, empties it, and drags it back up for her. Spring, summer, winter, fall, he does that. Okay? I have seen the city drivers drive around, pick up garbage cans, dump them down our street, and leave garbage all over the street. He goes and picks it up. He picks up couches, mattresses, chairs, TVs, anything people want to throw out, they pick up. And they charge their tenants for that. The city does not do that at all. When we had all that flooding, everybody on my street had carpet out. Everybody had everything out. He went around to all the neighbors and helped pick that up and then charged them for it. That's what that's for. Not once a week. Maybe people couldn't get to that stuff when the city did come around to do that. Okay? There were trees all over the place after the city pickup. He picks them up. Now, after your fourplex or whatever, too, we have 3 houses. I plan on selling my house in the near future, but my house across the street from me, they pay their garbage. Now, when they move out, the next person has to have city garbage. I don't agree with that at all. You're taking business away from 2 wonderful businesses in this town that not only donate time and stuff to everything in this town and events, but you're also taking away our privilege as people to have a choice for good service or average service at best. I had city garbage. I went to Petrix. The other thing I have a problem with is that yes, I pay $4 a month for recycling, and I have never, ever had a bin, ever, in the 6 years I've lived there. I have called and asked for a bin, never got a bin. I don't have a green bin to put my grass clippings in, which really doesn't matter because they're all going to the same landfill anyway, you know? And now you've got recyclables. The Petrix and Miedema are supposed to handle the commercial recyclables, and they're hauling cardboard for no money. Absolutely no money. 90% of the cardboard goes out to the city landfill. It sits there anyway. And now you're talking about keeping the tipping fees average. You know, keeping them down for these guys. We've heard that they're going to go up to $80 a ton. You know,
Where you got that?
I'm serious. We've heard that the city landfills are going to go up now.
No,
You know,
there's no plan to raise any.
that's the thing with this whole thing. It was
Well, that's-
2 days' notice,
Yeah, but
Mr.
that's-
Mayor.
That's part of your misinformation. There's
That's
no
exactly
raising
right.
of the fees. So, you know, part of this is to educate, and we know that.
Okay.
Okay? So,
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
saying
Go
that with 2 days' notice, that they were not informed, he was not informed, this is his job. This is our livelihood.
Mr. Petrick would own the company, and I admit, I dropped the ball on Mr. Petrick my fault.
Well, it states right in there
But
that they
I'm
were
not,
talked
I'm not going
to.
to talk to his drivers. We're going to talk to Mr. Petrick, okay, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am
Go
a
ahead.
driver, and I'd like to speak. I'm Jimmy Iceberg.
Thank
Work
you.
for
Thank you.
Petrix. I have a question for Mr. Croce. Do you know how much a tandem axle city garbage truck weighs that goes through the alleyways?
No, go ahead, you can tell me.
Okay, the net weight's around 40,000 pounds, about 20 ton. Okay? When that's full, it probably puts on another, I don't know, 15,000 pounds. Okay, so you're at 55,000 pounds over 25 ton. Miedema and Petrick's truck that goes through the alleyways are single axle trucks, and fully loaded, my truck never weighs as much as their truck weighs empty. So saying that we're destroying all the alleyways and screwing up all the roads, which was in the newspaper, is not accurate. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
So, just to respond to that, Mr. Mayor and Council, there was nothing saying that the total decay of the alleyways is caused by private collectors. That is a falsehood.
Multiple trucks.
There are a lot of trucks on the road. There are a lot of trucks in the alleyway, specifically collectors. Providing this ordinance change would reduce the number of trucks on the road in the alleyway. That's all we were saying. We were not saying one company or another is a cause for the decay of the roadways or alleyways.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Jeff Miedema, Miedema Sanitation. We've been doing this almost 50 years in Mitchell. We have a lot of customers that have special, requirements for their garbage. I'm gonna throw one out. Jim D's wife, she lives on Foster and Chalkstone. Her driveway is 225 feet long. It's uphill both ways, So I don't know what her age is, but there's no way she can take her can to the street. We drive our truck right up to her house. We collect her garbage. She's happy. We're not the cheapest in town by any means. I mean, we're not to compete with you guys. Obviously, in 50 years, we pick up 100 houses in town. Our core area is outside of where you guys don't go. There's a lot of housing developments, like Firesteel Heights. You guys wouldn't pick up any garbage there. We picked up all the houses. Now it's annexed into the city. I think we have 3 or 4 over there still. Like Anthony Avenue, we pick up a few. We just go where you guys don't. But now some of those are actually in town. I don't want to lose them. I mean, our customers, they like what we do for them. I'd like to continue hauling their garbage. We back in driveways, we go in houses. Jack Holzberger has a key for us. We go right in his garage, get his garbage, never worries about it. That's what we do. We provide a service, something the city, you guys are streamlined. You go right down the alley, you pick up 12 houses in every block. It works great for you guys. But I think people need a choice sometimes too. Our main focus is commercial collection, industrial. That's what we do. We haven't taken on any new houses in town since the first talk of recycling, because at that time my parents said, okay, we have 75 houses in town. We'd have to build a facility to help out these 75 houses and recycle. It wouldn't be profitable at all for us. So we chose not to take any new in-town houses at that time, and we haven't since. We make a few special exceptions. If we pick up your business garbage, we may pick up your house if you ask, but we don't advertise it. We're not competing against your in-town pickup. So, but in the last 3 days, I've had a lot of emails, phone calls, texts, oh, we love your service. I believe you know our driver that takes care of the residential service.
I happen to know him, yeah.
Good kid. Does a great job.
My son.
I'm not gonna say we're gonna let him go. I'd hate to, it would be awkward at your house. No.
So I'm going to see him when I get home tonight. So tell him.
He may need a place to live, but no, we're not. No, we're not going to let him go. But I would like to keep the customers we have. Pat and Bobby Clark are right over there. We back in their driveway. The trash cans are beside the house. They don't have to take them to the street. It's a service they enjoy. We provide it. So, I guess my other concern is the commercial recycling. Recyclables are an all-time low, the commodity is. You know, Dependable was subsidized. They got money from you guys. They could sell the cardboard and make money on that too. Now, all the recyclables, since China won't take it, it's worth nothing. You know, it costs $20 to make a cardboard bale. It's worth $15 delivered to Minneapolis. You know, for Petrick or myself to bale cardboard, we can't do it without a subsidy, you know? So, I mean, it's a tough market right now with recycling. It's a good thing. I mean, I don't deny that, but, you know, to make any money with it, you know, and be profitable. If I had to take out a loan and get $1 million worth of equipment and recycle for commercial businesses, I think my bank would laugh at me, you know? And then we would have to charge, you know, all these businesses, say Tyler Graham's gas station. Right now, his bill would probably double if we were going to take all of his recycling. I don't want to do that to a lot of small businesses, and I don't know what the answer is, but right now, a lot of people are recycling cardboard. It's working good. You know, you can say what you want about Dependable. They've had their ups and downs. But they are getting the cardboard picked up from the businesses. If they don't, we do. We take care of it for them so it doesn't pile up. But, you know, I think it's something we need to ease into. I don't want to make it mandatory for every business in town, and all of a sudden everybody's garbage bill doubles on the recycling on these businesses. That's my thoughts, I guess. So our residential truck we use in the alleys, it weighs 20,000 pounds empty. You know, I know that was a concern. You know, the city's is 40, ours is 20. I think theirs is 27 or whatever. But yeah, I know that was a concern that was brought up. But you know, our little truck, we don't take a big truck down the alleys for houses. Andy does it. His truck weighs 20,000 pounds. So, but I would like to keep the customers we have. I mean. That's a big concern of mine. I mean, we've had a lot of them we got an email from Mrs. Bleeker. She said they started picking up my garbage February 28th, 1972. She knows the date, and she appreciates our service, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wimpy.
Mayor, members of council, I take a look at
State your
it, Jay Wimpy's the name,
Thank
and I look at it a little different. How many people go to one gas station to fill up? Please raise your hand if you go to one gas station in town and only one gas station in town. None. How many go to one grocery store and only one grocery store in town? Raise your hand. Okay, so what happens if we go to one garbage collection? We have a monopoly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, my name is Todd Boyd. I have two residential properties in the city. I have two apartment buildings, one a fourplex, one a sixplex, and I have two commercial properties. And they would all be affected by change potentially, or I would be paying double in this case. I'd have no choice but to probably pass this on to my renters, let them help share in that. A lot of my thoughts have been expressed already. So one thing that I did want to say, though, is the personal service, and it is a big thing. It's a big thing for me when I have somebody that puts a chair out behind one of the apartment buildings. You know, they move out, they put a mattress, they put a chair, they put excess garbage. I call my friend Jeff and say, I've got some extra stuff, and he takes care of it. And that is a big thing for service. So I don't think that that's available. I'm quite sure it is not through the city. But that is a big thing for me. I don't really want to pay twice for the service. I think that, you know, we should have the choice, leave it the way that it is, where we do have a choice, and there's not that many of us that are really taking advantage of it, but it's important to several of us. I had the elderly people. I've got a couple of elderly people or people that have issues with mobility. They'd have no way of getting their trash to where it needs to be, so I wanted to throw that in there as well. You know, we've got a lot of services that are available through the city that we don't make everybody just pay for. We don't make everybody have a golf membership or a rec center membership or, you know, whatever it is. We have a whole bunch of these things that I don't feel like we require everybody to be part of. We let people make some choices, and I'd say that's what I would like, is to keep it as a choice that I can make, because I get good service from my friend Jeff. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak to it? Okay. Quiet council. I assume you're all digesting the comments and whatnot.
So Kyle, going all the way back to the beginning, right now, we are picking up 5,500 residents, as you said, and 300 homeowners are electing to go elsewhere. Is that correct?
Rough
I
numbers.
don't know if we really even got to the beginning of why this was even recommended initially. And I know it was explained to us that there was kind of a trade-off that, you know, if we pick up the remaining of the residences, then there's some existing on the, probably with some of the apartment holders, the middle ones with 8 to 10 or whatever, we're currently picking up, and there was a trade-off of private, we'll hand them off to the private ones, and I don't know, you know, all the circumstances that was discussed. But can you kind of relay what was the advantage of taking in all the residences and then passing off some of the apartment buildings?
Well, I think we started with our discussion on the agenda going forward on to be more streamlined for the city, be more efficient with the city. So going through the roadways and alleyways and having the city pick up the single-family residences, we figured when we talked to the private commercial collector as well, and figured on an 8-unit or less would be economical for us and efficient for the city. For larger units, we would want that to be commercial so that we're not hauling that and that much on dumpsters and those sizes like that. You know, eventually what we wanted to do was the agenda was to go to automated curbside, and that was efficient for both recycling and garbage. And so this is the ordinance that gets us one step closer. I think we can still work with the private collectors on identifying what is commercial, and there's still a large room for them to utilize that aspect of it in the city. I have 36 different complexes here with up to 1,400 apartment units that the city does not want to charge recycling for those units, and we do want to work with the private collectors to do that. We think there's an income there. We think there's a usage there and a participation for recycling. They already pick up the garbage there, so we think their income could be added by participating in recycling through this ordinance. So additionally, I think we went through the budget, and it was decided that we would utilize the alley garbage collectors as the recyclers, so that, again, this ordinance moves us toward that goal, not to increase the number of personnel working for the city.
Well, I talked to Mr. Petrick today, and he said he could live with a grandfather and in, and so I'll move on to the second reading.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
With the amendment?
Correct.
So we have a motion by Mr. Sabers to approve the first reading.
Correct.
With the amendment, grandfathering them in. Is there a second?
Can I say one more?
Sure.
Would it be possible?
Hold on, let me get a second, and then I'll let you have all the.
Just because we have a motion on the floor, Jeff, for prop.
All right, is there a second?
I'm going to second Dan's motion with the thought of the fact that we all know there's a second reading in 2 weeks more to have more discussion, which obviously we had some great discussion tonight and input, and I appreciate that. And I'm going to second Dan, so let's move forward.
Now, motion is second,
Thank you.
further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Barrington.
Mr. Meadum, go at
All
it
right.
again.
Maybe there could be an exception for some, specific instances, you know, like Mrs. D's house. I mean, I don't have any others
Yeah.
right now, but there's gonna be some along the way, you know.
There's no question there will be tweaking that'll have
Sure.
to happen to
Yep.
this. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Sure.
And this
Yep.
started the process.
Yep.
We know that there would have to be adjustments here and there.
Sure.
whatnot.
Yeah, another
The-
example.
The idea isn't to put you guys out of business.
Sure.
We like you doing business.
Thank you.
Don't
We
get
like
us
doing
wrong.
business here.
So, and that's, you know, and I think I told you that in one or two of the meetings. we
Sure,
had,
yeah.
that is not the intent.
Sure.
We're just trying to make it so that we can have, people can recycle. And one of the biggest complaints the city gets is recycling. They watch, we've got videos sent to us where Dependable picks up the recycling in one person's blue container, goes a house down, and throws it in the garbage can. I mean, they filmed it, sent it.
Right, yeah.
So.
I'm not here to defend them or
No,
praise
I
them,
know.
anything. I mean,
The biggest-
separate
the biggest
companies, not us.
The biggest complaint
Don't even put
we
me in the
get,
same room, okay?
Nobody knows what gets recycled.
Right.
In fact, you know, I'll go home after putting recycling out, and virtually nothing's taken out of my bin.
Sure.
And it's all recyclable stuff in accordance with what's in the city.
I would be willing to bet 90% of the people, they put the recycling in the bin, it goes to the curb. They feel good because they're going to recycle it. After that, they have no idea where it goes.
Well, we're finding out some of it goes into the garbage can next door.
Sure. What I was going to say is, you know, we have a fourplex, Hello Lloyd and Porter's have some on North Kimball, I believe. They have 4 of them. The first 3 are on the street. The 4th one is in the trees next to Jim Porter's house, so it's actually a long driveway. Andy drives the truck down to every unit and picks up their can right outside their door. Those people don't take it all the way down to the street. It's not an 8-plex, it's a 4-plex. You know, it's another special instance where, you know, you guys may not provide that service where we do. I guess I don't want to set at an 8-plex, you know what I mean?
How do you get him to do that much work? I could never get it.
He's a good kid. Did you give him a paycheck every week?
Oh, that might be the problem.
There we go. So.
Well, that depends on how you look at it, sir.
Probably more than I want to know. Andy's taking a beating here tonight. I'm sorry, he's not even here. But he's a wrestling coach. He can handle it. So
So your recommendation is you're trying to get at the fact of setting it at 8-plex and changing that number down lower, is what you're sort of asking?
201-plex is where I'd like it. No, but you know, we have some
And that's
duplexes.
I mean, that's certainly open for discussion.
Sure. I mean, how many 8-plexes do we have in town? Does anybody know?
I don't.
There's a lot of 4-plexes. You know, there's a lot of duplexes. I mean, but I don't know how many 8-plexes we have.
We know through billing on water bills that out of 5,800 residences, we
Sure.
cover 5,500.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I
how
just
you
don't want to
guys
set
split
at
the
that
rest of
number
that
of
up?
8. You know, I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of, you know, specific instances where it's just.
Frankly, I think Mr. Croce would be happy if he took it down to a 2-plex.
So Jeff, the grandfathering in would obviously take the Porter Halloy property in.
Correct. Yep.
I mean, do you want it to go beyond that? Is that what you're asking? So that if, I mean, what would?
Yeah, I
be
mean, that's
your-
just one instance that I can think of right now. I'm sure there's others. You know, I know behind Menards, there's a couple that we get, you know, but I guess the biggest thing is the areas, you know, where you guys didn't even go to when they were first getting established and we serviced. Now all of a sudden, you know, if you do want to take them away, I mean, we've serviced them all along. They've stayed with us. We'd like to stay with them. I think they enjoy our service and we like having them. So,
I think a lot of those were one time out of city limits.
right. Yep. So, yeah, I just wanted to get that number from 8, maybe 4. I mean, we discussed it one day, but just want to make sure it's not set in stone that, so.
Nothing in this is set.
You know, and there's
It's only in ink.
there's going to be a lot of older people that, have some ailment that won't be able, I mean, we're
Right,
not going
and
to
that's
sit here.
why, and that's part of why we talked to James Valley Community Center about volunteers and the possibility of setting up some
Sure.
criteria so volunteers could go out and help people who
Yeah.
needed it. So there's a lot of thought that's been put
Sure.
into it.
Okay, well, yeah, that's this, I guess, my other concern, so, all right, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
If I can jump in with 2 quick comments here. As I understood it, the discussion, some of the concern here was about making it easier for the city to bill for recycling. Is that correct?
No,
That was-
make it more. Everybody gets billed. It would some of what's getting billed is in apartment buildings that don't get collected. So
Right.
what we're trying to do is take that away and only bill those that are
So-
residences that are,
On a fourplex like mine, would I continue to get billed from the city on my water bill like I do now for the garbage pickup that I'm not getting, but I would actually get?
not with the amendment, you would.
So you would stop charging me for recycling at my fourplex? And that's,
Recycling, no.
because I'm currently
No,
on my city water bill getting charged $16 a month for the recycling pickup that they don't provide. And you're saying you're going to stop charging me for it and start providing it? Doesn't that seem counterintuitive?
No,
And we would charge
would
and
be
we would provide it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd be getting recycling.
Okay, so yeah, I'd just love to get what I'm paying for already. The second thing is, in between now and the second reading, if you have friends in Sioux Falls, call them and ask them what it's like to drag their garbage out to the city street, and they
They
will
don't.
laugh at you because they don't.
That's
Because
right.
they all have services like these guys
The
provide.
independent hauler does it in Sioux Falls, and they haul it back up. That's part of what Sioux Falls requires.
Amen, I'd like to see that. If the city forces us all to go to their service, let's let them provide those services like the independents do.
Keep in mind.
We'd have to
paying
hire a lot
taxes
more
on those
people. And
I
we'd have to
pay
hire a
them
lot
less than
more.
I pay the city when I use them.
Maybe we need to privatize it. Go the other way. Okay. It's in your court, gentlemen and ladies.
Have a motion in a second.
Oh, we have a motion second, I'm sorry. Any other
Yeah,
discussion?
and once again, my second is for more discussion and the fact the additional 2 weeks. Does not mean that I'm supporting this necessarily in 2 weeks or anything like that, but I think as usual, in the last 13 years I've sat here, the due diligence of giving our people another 2 weeks to take a look at things is the reason why we have a first reading and a second reading to correct a few statements earlier, so.
Anybody else
That's where
want
I'm
to address it out in public? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
2? Yeah, roll call it, please.
Sabers,
Aye.
Rice,
I will not vote for a monopoly. No.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Sharps. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
6-2.
Motion carries. First reading of ordinance 2019-24, changing the zoning district classification of real property legally described as lots 12 and 13, Block 8, Applegate Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota, from transportation warehouse district to single-family residential R2.
Again, if I draw your attention to the Planning Commission minutes, you see that they held their hearing on this and recommended approval. On that map, you can kind of see it's kind of dim you can see the red marks there. The applicant is actually the owner of 312 with that house, and he also owns the lot to the north. And the property to the west, the 723, that whole block is zoned R2. So that's one of the issues so it doesn't have that issue that you might think is spot zoning. What I understand is there's a couple different reasons why having a house in a commercial district sometimes is problematic, is one is also trying to get financing, or perhaps trying to sell it at a future date, or and perhaps if on that vacant lot, if they wish to do any home improvement or any residential type construction, and the party would need financing and so forth, that would be that opportunity. Again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this. This is first reading, so. We didn't receive any, there was one concern regarding a nuisance, but other than that, there wasn't any objection, unless there's somebody here.
Move to place on first reading.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Executive session, motion to enter into executive session in accordance with codified law 125-23 legal. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. There will be no action after the executive
Ah,
session.
there's a lady here with her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi. I was a few minutes late, so I missed the discussion about Sam. My name's Lisa Catalier, and I apologize that I'm going to get emotional. me. Okay, well, that was the last thing on my mind. It took me a week to be able to continue to function. I run Dairy Queen here in town, okay, so I'm running a multi-million-dollar business and raising teenagers, which is like a chore all on its own, plus worrying about how to get in and out safely of my home and my father-in-law. My husband's already relocated to Nevada, where we're moving in the beginning of the year, so that was like, I got a hold of Jeff. I came to the meeting on Wednesday and let all the people know, and I was informed after the meeting that we were authorized to have temporary, a temporary.
Access along the right-of-way to get a gravel path to your property.
And somebody decided it wasn't necessary. At the point where the ambulance needed to be called, there was hard-packed gravel in front of the house. The ambulance could have pulled up to the front of my house, but even if they got there, it wasn't safe to enter through the front because they took the concrete from underneath my wooden steps, so the bottom 2 steps are iffy. My point in bringing this forward, which I told Mr. McCormick and the rest of the planning last Wednesday, Phase 3, I can picture 3 homes. I've paid more attention since that meeting, and I think only one of them is completely landlocked, and the other 2 appear to have a little bit of an alley. I haven't driven up the road to see, but directly across from Subway. Like, I can see it in my mind's eye that if there isn't something done to protect those families, maybe somebody's not going to make it with 10 minutes next time. Okay, my purpose of coming here today and bringing this to everyone's attention is to make sure that when you do Phase 3, that there's more thought put into it to the residents that are affected by it, that nobody dies. I've put up with the 6:30 in the morning bed start shaking because I don't even know what the name of the equipment is outside of my house. They were out there until 12:30 Friday night with a circular saw grinding into the concrete. I wanted to go to bed at 10 and I couldn't because it was too loud right outside my house for 2.5 more hours. I get it. The upgrades need to happen. I've tried to be, and I really have been, I think, accommodating for the obstacles that I faced along the way, but almost losing a family member, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. And I really just felt in my heart that y'all needed to know what I went through, what my family faced with these construction obstacles. And I don't know that if anything happened with anybody during Phase 1, and if this is the only incident for Phase 2, I just pray that it doesn't have to happen to another family for Phase 3.
Thank you for bringing it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay,
Do we have a vote on the motion?
do we have a vote? No, we haven't voted yet.
I have the motion, but.
All right, all those in favor of the motion for executive session, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.